Teachers of Reddit, what's the funniest thing you've heard a student say that you unfortunately had to punish them for? This is more of something a student did. About a month ago I hear a kid yelling, "My eyes are burning." I ask him what's wrong and he says that another kid sprayed him with something. I go to that kid and he hands me a bottle of Warhead spray candy and says it's just water. When I told him that water doesn't burn eyes, he replies with, "Well, I did put salt in it." I once had a 7th grader come into class after lunch urgently telling me that she needed to go to the nurse. Her eyes were watering, and they were red and puffy. Turns out that she'd read online somewhere that you can get high by putting Vicks directly on your eyeballs. A really affluent town in Mexico had a problem years ago of kids getting drunk by pouring drops of booze in their eyes. Billboards and stuff were put up telling them to stop. Local high school had assemblies. A crazy amount of kids went blind before it was stopped. I mean, it does clear your eyes up. My girlfriend is a teacher. There was a little boy in her class who was finger painting. He stops, looks at his hands and says, "Now how the duck do I get this off? Don't leave us hanging." OP. How the duck did he get it off? I assume with small children the school used washable fingerprint. Yes, young children have to be careful or their fingerprints will wash right off. Kid in my class was given some bad news once and exclaimed, "Oh shit," right on my dong. It was inappropriate, but it sounded so incredibly genuine and defeated. My English teacher, early 20s, fresh out of school, looked like she was in physical pain. Having to punish him, despite laughing uncontrollably and feeling sympathy for his situation. Laughing hysterically at 226 mthnx. From US. Visiting Jordan. Thought I'd add most upvotes I've gotten so far. Nerdy. Overheard a grade 6 student tell a group of kids in his class that if they don't take their Viagra they wouldn't be able to please their girlfriend. It was surprising. So that's why I'm single. Never took Viagra. Be right back. Calling my doctor. Update. He's now engaged to his doctor. This teacher has had 4 last names because of remarrying in the last 5 to 6 years. An 11-year-old student was wondering why this teacher has had so many names. 11 years old. "Mrs. Have you been married before?" Teacher. "Yes." 11 years old. "Oh, so you're a hoe?" The kid honestly didn't mean it to be mean. He just thought that is what you call someone who has been married a few times. Luckily the teacher didn't take offense to it and said, "Well, he isn't wrong." However, his homeroom teacher wasn't as forgiving. I went through this exact thing. A teacher started off with my class married, then got divorced and went back to her maiden name for a year, then married another teacher and took his name. This was all before 7th grade. We were so confused. To be honest, I am afraid to call her by the wrong last name. I couldn't say with 100% certainty what her name is this year. Their insults to each other have evolved. We used to call each other's mums. The other day I heard, "Your mum smells like the coral reef when she opens her legs. Your nan is a slag and your dad touches other dads." That kid wanted to drag down the entire bloodline. JFC. Just makes me think of that one episode of SpongeBob with Plankton insulting the whole family. Someone should put you in a box floating down the river, grandma. Thank you. You/Jotaro is a loligan. Teaching 1st grade and a kid came up to me and said, "Miss, he just said something bad," so I walk over to he and ask if he said something inappropriate. He shrugs, looks sheepish and says, "I said cows have big boobies." I literally paused with my mouth open. Was not expecting that one. Once at my brother's school. "What does the pig give us? Pork. What does the hen give us? Egg. What does the cow give us? Bullshit." Not me but my fiance. She's a really great teacher but was having trouble with this one class. One of the students asked her, "Mrs. Teacher, do you have any kids?" Fiance. "Oh god no." Kid. "That might be for the best." Good lord, children are savage. "Hey, miss, will you touch my weenus?" Standing there in silent shock. Student slowly bends elbow and points to it. Weenus. This was the day I learned what a weenus is. Apparently, they had just come from biology. Ended up not really formally punishing the kid. It was, in fact, a weenus. but I did need a minute to control the laughter before I could teach again. We had a conversation about what appropriateness and context are after class. I said this to a friend once and a teacher overheard me and I got in trouble. Now they think you have the G. Literally shaking and crying RN. Student. Small dongs matter. Me. AJ. Let's keep it school appropriate. Student. Small penises matter. Couldn't help but laugh. A movement I can get in the behind. He's right, those small dongs matter. Ms. K. How do you know if you have swamp ass? Ms. K. I would make a terrible hooker. I have bad knees. Jose. I'm gonna grab you by the nipple hair and kick your ass. All of these from the exact same class. I taught freshmen a few years ago. They had some imaginations. Edit. My first silver is a post about swamp ass and nipple hair. Here's to you. Reddit. And, how do you know if you have swamp ass? Also, what is swamp ass? Edit. I found an article talking about it, but this line will haunt me. It's highly possible that you could have swamp ass and not even know it until it's too late. What in the four hells? Terminal swamp ass? I think it's when your ass is sweaty. A friend of mine teaches first grade. One day her class was watching Hercules and during the scene where Hades is smoking a cigar a kid shouts, "Miss, he's smoking a fat blunt." I can't imagine trying to keep a straight face when she had to tell her that she can't say that kind of stuff in school. This one made me laugh out loud. The fat part makes it work. I worked at an alternative ed school for kids who were expelled from their old schools. I taught a class of 8th grade boys, so I have tons of great stories. My favorite was one day I was reading out loud from the newspaper that Old Country Buffet was closing down, and one of my students said, "Are you ducking kidding me?" while simultaneously punching a hole in the window. I laughed so hard but also had to give him detention and fill out a ton of paperwork. Edit. I'm glad this story entertained you guys. These kids were no joke. I had a full-time therapist in my room with me because it was such a liability to be alone with them. The kids had daily therapy sessions to help them deal with their anger issues, trauma, etc. Most of my students were affiliated with gangs and got in a lot of trouble for drug-related crimes. About half my kids were in detention centers before coming to my classroom and a lot of them had ankle monitors. Old Country Buffet kid was an especially large 14-year-old. His file said he got expelled from his old school because he was very into the Twilight series and some kids made fun of him for it. So he beat the shit out of them. He did need stitches after the window incident. More please. I bet it was that kid from the Goonies. Old Country Buffet was closing down. Not going to lie, reading that gave me a bit of anxious rage. I teach pre-K. The kids were out at recess and one was riding a bike wearing his helmet, as he should. One of my girls walked by and hit him over the head with our plastic baseball bat. I asked her why she did that. She replied, he has a helmet on. I had to turn away and snort before telling her it wasn't okay to hit anyone, even if they have a helmet. Literally every video game with friendly fire turned off ever. From South Korea, we were learning good at. I am good at soccer. I am good at English. Teacher, she is good at ugly. Hahaha, poor girl. Good at you ain't got no alibi. Better change your name to u/Thebanet Bayakit. I'm a teacher, but the funniest punishment I know of was not for one of my students. It was for my son. My son is the quietest kid I have ever met. He gets extremely anxious. When he was 4, his grandfather died unexpectedly and he got even quieter. For years, he did not generally talk with schoolmates or ever ask adults, besides me, for help. I had to explain this to his new teachers every year. By the time he was 8, it was routine to go to parent-teacher conferences and have teachers share he was a good student, but they wished he would talk more. I went to a conference with his 2nd grade teacher and she said, "I need to tell you, your son got in trouble for talking to friends in class today." I asked him to stop and he still disrupted the class, so I had to put his name on the board. When you get home, will you tell him how proud I am of him and give him a high five? We had one of the best times ever at family dinner that night. I'd say the same thing. Good to hear that he worked his way through his anxiety. This was so endearing to hear. Thank you for that. I actually didn't punish this kid though I was supposed to, but I couldn't stop laughing. So, whenever my high schoolers whine about something I say into every life a little rain must fall, which is my polite and deliberately annoying way of saying suck it up. By the end of the year, they're so used to it that all I have to do is say into every life, and they roll their eyes and grumble, but at least they stop complaining. Well, one day a kid comes in my room and he's already complaining about something that hasn't even happened yet. So I say into every life, and he says a little rain must fall. I know, but Mrs. Danicali up. It's a FNG thunderstorm right now. This is golden. What did you respond with to that? In between laughter I told him I was going to pretend I hadn't heard that. I love your name. It feels like something I would name my horse. Or a cat. No offense, it's just so creative, lol. In attempting to explain the physics of leverage and moving a heavy thing I said you can't move it the way the Egyptians did. Kid immediately piped you get a bunch of Jewish slaves to do it. That's historically inaccurate too. That's ducking hilarious. Hysterically inaccurate. I was teaching nutrition and garden education to 2nd graders. Really sick. All hopped up on cold medicine on a rainy day and discussing our agrarian community. Me. Does anyone know any farmers? Kid. Yep, my uncle is a farmer. Me. Nice. What does he farm? Kid. Pot. Me. Slowly blinks. Class. Giggles. Me. Okay. We're talking fruits and vegetables here. People. Does anyone else know a farmer? How about Farmer John? Do you guys know Farmer John? With the pumpkins? Babbling continues. Is it common for 2nd graders these days to know what pot is? Well, we are in California and the school had a pretty even demographic mix of migrant farmer and surfer families. To be fair, I think the rest of the class was mostly giggling at my own drugged up reaction. But this kid definitely had some pretty progressive parents from the level of sass he normally displayed. He was also wearing a tie-dye sweatshirt when he made this comment, so I figured I probably had it coming when I called on him. Today I learned surfer families are a thing. I found my niche. I had recess duty a few years ago. A kindergarten girl came running over with another girl right after her and said she called me the B word. When I asked the second student if she called the first student the B word, she turned to the first one and said mother ducker doesn't start with a B. I managed to turn my laugh into a cough. But yeah, no more recess for her that day. Edited to add. Holy crap. My inbox has exploded overnight. I also received my first platinum, gold and silver ever. So thank you. I don't think the first girl even realized mother ducker was a swear, so she was focused on the word beach. The child is clearly gifted if she knows that mother ducker doesn't start with B at that age. A as in apple, B as in mother ducker, C as in cat, B as in bad mother ducker. That kid has been watching too much Pulp Fiction. I had been painting over some Sharpie on the wall with oil paint or Kills or something similar, but the smell lingers for a long time. High schoolers start to come in for class. Girl A yells, "Why's IT stink in here?" Girl B says, "Because your mouth is open." Girl A rifles back, "Because your legs is open." r/murder Edbywoods. r/murder Hamasa Edbywoods. Mr. Clean Magic Erase sponges get Sharpie off most school surfaces that can handle some abrasive force. For larger jobs, can just get Ajax and a washcloth. Either seems easier than repainting the wall, but I guess it could have been a lot of Sharpie on a wall that needed a repainting anyway. Teaching a class of high school seniors, they were pissed about something and wouldn't let me get a word in. Worst a-hole in the class raises his hand for probably the first time in his life, so I call on him. He says, "Thank you, Mr. L. I don't know what you're trying to tell us, but I think everyone needs to shut the duck up so you can talk." Took everything in my power not to crack up. I didn't get him in trouble. He won a place in my heart that day. Seeing students produce quality work that even they didn't know they were capable of is hugely gratifying, and my absolute favorite thing about being a teacher. Kids telling their classmates to shut the duck up so I can teach is a close second though. I always have a soft spot for the a-holes. A lot of the time they are acting up because of some other shit in their life and don't really need more of it from me. Some of them are still huge a-holes though. I really liked most of the kids who I had to discipline the most. They usually had a lot of personality. There was one boy, though, whose life did suck but I just couldn't like him. Tried to like him, was nice to him, but found out later that he raped the girl he had been dating that year. That's inexcusable, no matter how messed up your parents are. Edit. A word. Best comment of the day. We had a guy in high school who was high every damn day who came in sober one day and was sent to the office for suspicious behavior. That teacher was the only one who never noticed he was always on something and thought he was on something the one day he wasn't. Principal just sent him back to class. It was pretty much an open secret, and since he never caused any trouble or actually smoked anything at school as far as they knew, nobody really cared.